Hey everybody, it's Steve from HitItLonger.com. Today we're taking a look at the swing of Mac O'Grady. This is from 1990. Arguably, Mac O'Grady's best 2 years on the PGA Tour were 1986 and 1987, where he was in the top 10 in driving distance, but he was around 150th in driving accuracy. He was under 60% fairways in both of those years, so you could not point at him as being a model of incredible accuracy, although he was a very, very supple athlete and very powerful athlete. He could play golf very well left-handed as well. I think Mike Austen would have three things to say to Mac, although I'm going to play this swing for you through. It'll be in slow-mo. What a terrific, balanced, relaxed finish that he puts on this swing. This swing is close to perfect, technically. There are so many good points about it. I'll tell you the highlights that I really like. Look how wide the arc is here going back and how he maintains the width of the arc. Again, he was very supple, flexible athlete, but this really helps with hitting the ball solidly. A terrific shoulder turn, maintaining the same width from the base of the neck up to the handle of the club as he started. Very close. Okay, that's one thing I really like. As I mentioned, another thing I really like is impact position. Really looks great. He looks really powerful, ready to make a full release, which is pretty good here. And then again, the way he just looks so balanced, so relaxed at the finish of the swing. Watching him, what I remember from him on TV was how he would hit it long with a relatively small amount of effort. So here's the three things I think Mike Austen would say to him, because at 60% or less fairways hit, I think you would be able to argue that it leaves room for improvement somewhere. And obviously only winning twice on tour. Now, he was not a very good putter statistically. He was 130th, 140th on tour generally each year, so that, I'm sure, had a lot to do with him not winning more. But of course, driving the ball less than 60% accuracy and being in the rough a lot, that won't help either. Let's take a look at what I think Mike Austen would say to him. All 3 points I'm going to make can be traced back to address, things that address. I think Mike would have had him weaken his grip. You can see the left hand turned on top very much, the right hand turned underneath. I think you'd be able to argue that this is a strong grip, stronger than neutral. And with the other things I'm going to bring up, I'm going to guess that his bad miss would be a hook when he was playing, just from that alone. Okay, so that's point number one. I think also, if we draw lines down from his hip bones here and here, you will see that O'Grady's heels are wider than his hip bones. Okay? This is important because it's going to cause the upper spine to shift back and forth instead of the lower spine to shift back and forth, resulting in a less than perfectly steady head position. We'll draw this square here. Okay, and between that and the hip action being more of a turn in the barrel style hip action, you see his hip bones for the most part staying inside the red or orange lines here, but you can see that there is a little bit of movement laterally with the head. This is similar, I believe, to Hogan, where Hogan on the driver, his feet were wider than hip width, and so there was a little bit of rocking to and fro, so it looks like there's a little bit of lateral shift in the head, and then just a little bit of kind of leaning back to center again. Okay, so he's dead center again, but I think you're going to see as he strikes through the ball, there's now going to be some upwards drift. It's minor, it's not major, as there's nothing in the swing, there's nothing wrong with this in a major way at all. Very, very, very solid and viable. But if you know anything about Mike Austen, you knew that he was all about optimal. Not just viable, but optimal. And he pushed you to not just have your swing be good, but to be perfect, great, one of the best. So you can see there's a little bit of upward drift here as he comes through impact. I think that's another thing that can be traced from O'Grady's setup, which I've seen down the line is he's bent over a little bit more than Mike was. If Mike was bent over around 30 degrees, then O'Grady would probably be measured more like 30 or 35 or even 40 degrees bent at the hip. So he had a little bit more bend at the hips at the beginning, and all I think he's doing here is returning to a 30-degree angle. So kind of the opposite of what Hogan used to do. Hogan used to line up at about a 15-degree bend forward at the hip, and then he would kind of dive into it, and he would end up at 30 degrees as well. So there's something magical about that 30-degree angle on someone who's a real good ball striker, like Hogan and O'Grady were. See that upward drift? Okay, so I think the three things Mike would have wanted him to address would be grip, narrow the heels just slightly, and not quite bend over at the hips as much would result in a steadier head position. Let's look at one more thing here. Here at the just past the moment of impact, I think this is the most fair impact position. It's past, we're in between frames, but let's look at the spine angle here, the side bend from the center of the neck, the base of the neck, down to the belt buckle, which appears to be around here. Okay. This point is, whoops, it's about 25 degrees or so. I messed the line up a little bit, but it's about 25 degrees from vertical. So when my last analysis I did on a swing that is supposed to be similar, this golf machine style Morad / stack and tilt swing, we saw Robert Rock at about 11 degrees. This is a little different animal here. 25 degrees is much more side tilt. Okay, again, if we were to draw those hip lines again from the beginning, let's do that in blue. Right here, drawing lines from the ilium crest down to the ground vertically. You'll see that his navel nearly reaches the center of his heel line. Almost. You can see it's just slightly inside. Just a little bit. Which would be about an inch difference. Again, I think the inch gap you see there is the result of having the heels a little bit outside the hip bones at address. And I think Mike would have urged him to narrow up just a little bit so that he ended up more solidly on the left heel with his navel directly on top instead of just an inch different. Again, these difference between just doing things really well and doing things mechanically perfect, as Mike Austen would urge you to do. But Mac, no question that he's a very lean, supple athlete, powerful, balanced, had a terrific swing, and I imagine that he would have loved to have studied under Mike Austen if he didn't. I would not be shocked if the two of them at some point crossed paths, as they were both in the Southern California area. All right, anyway, I look forward to your comments. Thank you for watching.